we have Briana Nasman. She's been in the inner circle for a while now and been investing since 2017. She's had a few flip projects and has also a buy and hold property that is a sober living facility, and she's presented to the group on that before. Super excited to have her today talking about moving past your uncertainty and figuring out your real estate strategy, as she's tried a lot of different strategies. She also held a meetup in Bothell last week around this topic, and a lot of people found her really inspiring. So super excited to have her be able to share her story virtually as well.
All right, so I'll preface this by like saying that I'm pretty awkward as a presenter, but if you have any questions about anything, like feel free to jump in. I try to keep it pretty light because I'm super awkward, but okay. So woo, now we're cooking with gas. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of go over my stuff a little bit and then kind of dive into some of my deals that I've done, partially because they're fun and partially so that, you know, I'm not just like some random person who's never done anything in their entire life talking to you guys about this stuff. Then I want to talk about growth ceilings, mental health and fear, obstacles and excuses, my not patented strategy for reverse goal setting, and then figuring out your real estate investing strategy. Okay. That worked. Wonderful. Oh, technology is so great, guys. Okay, so about me, I got my real estate license in 2016. A college dropout. I fell in love with real estate and just went into that full time. And then I bought my first property in 2017. I bought a clean and sober house. I think I'm going to talk a little bit more. Am I going to talk? No, I don't think I do talk about that one more. But that was a fun project. Taught me a lot. I refinanced it a couple of times and bought and flipped a wedding venue that I had for 2 years. I've done several flips, built some houses in Suncadia, bought a construction company a couple months ago. And one important note is that everything I've purchased has been available to everyone. I often hear like, oh my God, how'd you find such a good deal? You must have bought it 5 years ago or this or that, whatever. I'm like, oh, it's always been like, it's on market, or someone has shopped it out to a bunch of investors and no one bought it except for me. So yeah, it's just like spotting opportunity and going for it and not being afraid. Oh, I do a deep dive on my clean and sober house. Okay, so I bought this one for $375 in 2017. This is the only house I've ever done a partnership on, and it was an interesting partnership. So I haven't really wanted to do any other since, but regardless, it's taught me a lot. So I bought that in 2017. The remodel was awful. I ended up getting it like condemned by the city, and it took like 18 months and like was beyond over budget. And I was managing the whole thing and had no idea what I was doing at all. My first contractor ended up selling meth to my tenants. So, and then just like bleeding me dry money wise. So that was super fun. But when we finished it, I was able to pull out, we had enough equity, I was able to pull out money to buy my wedding venue. And then I ended up doing a third lien from Flynn Family Lending to buy my Suncadia lot. So even though it was a terrible process and took like years to stabilize because I had no idea what I was doing, it was totally worth it. So yay. Okay, oopsies, not that. Deal dice. Okay. So my Suncadia property, I bought these 2 lots for $200 in almost 2 years ago, November of 2020. Little bit of a funny story there. They were on market by the developer, Suncadia LLC or whatever. They had moved on to a new phase of development at that time and the agents all thought that they were sold out in that phase. And so I was driving past them and I saw their little for sale signs. And so I asked my agent, can you just check and see if they're still available? Like they still say they're available. No, we've sold out this whole division, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, can you just double check? Just call the office. Oh, fine. So he like humors me and calls the office, and what do you know? They're freaking available still. And they've forgotten about them. Like they just forgot they were not sold. And so I was able to get a pretty good deal on them and buy both of them. And they were valued at about $280 when I bought them each, and I bought for $200. So it was great. I did like $20K down on this because I was able to use the equity on, it was a bit of a complicated loan strategy. So I put $20K down. I used my equity on my clean and sober house in my third lien from that one that I talked about, the Slim Family Lending one, as like a down payment on my Suncadia lots, and then they secured the other 40% on the lot. So essentially it was like 60% down, but the money from my down payment was all from the clean and sober house minus like 20 grand that I came to the table with. So it was pretty cheap to buy them. I've totally dumped a lot more money into them than I thought I would, based on just the rising construction costs and the construction budgets going up so much and everything. And they were like, the costs weren't all inclusive in my loan. It was supposed to be, the loan was supposed to cover the entire build basically, but ultimately it's cost me a lot of money. But good news is I still made a lot of money on them. Sold the first one in June for almost 2 million, and then I just listed the second house for 2.4, but I'm thinking it'll probably sell for like 2.3. So we'll just see how that goes. Wedding venue. So I bought this one for $600K in December of 2019. I was another 15K down when I got the second. That was my second loan on the clean and sober house. And then I borrowed the rest of the money from, so I bought it. I got 40K back at closing from the seller. That was independent of escrow because the SBA loan I was purchasing it with wouldn't allow me to take all that money from the seller. So we did that out of escrow. And we did have a contract for it and stuff, and like had, but he was, they're really, really nice old couple. So I wasn't particularly worried about it, but of course that's always, a risk or whatever. Anyway, so got my my 15K. I borrowed, trying to remember exactly how this one was structured, but I borrowed most of my down payment from my brother-in-law, and then when I closed the property, the seller gave me my $40,000 back after, like, a few days after closing, and so then I paid my brother-in-law back with that. So basically, I think it was total like 15,000 in. It was pretty much, so I did a remodel that initially was, it was like, okay, we'll do this remodel, raise prices, it'll be great. Except for then like the pandemic hit, and that was a terrible industry to be in during pandemic. So we ended up pretty much being a wash for the 2 years I owned it in terms of cash flow. But I did sell it in December of 2021 for $927. So I ended up coming out pretty far ahead on that one, which was cool. And then the Lake Taps one I just bought is fun because this one just like cracks me up, because I've talked to so many people since I bought it that were like, oh, I saw that deal. It looked like such a good deal. I thought about buying it. And I'm like, but you didn't. So I bought this one from a wholesaler for $885, and the broker price opinion that the lender ordered came back in at 1.3. So actually I literally got paid $20,000 to buy this property. The cool thing is the zoning allows for 15 lots. And so I ran my numbers 6 different ways on this, like determining whether or not I should just flip it, raise the house and do 15 lots, like how do I want to structure it. And the thing that makes the most sense income wise, and also neighborhood would probably approve of this much more than 15 houses, is flipping the house and keeping it, and like keeping all the lots like about a quarter acre, and then doing like 7 other lots. So that's going to be the most cost effective and profitable like method. So that's what I'm doing on that one. And it'll be a little easier because I'm not maximizing the zoning on it. I'm basically doing half of what the zoning would allow for. But there's a couple different options for it. And so I have some time to figure that out if I want to. This was one of those deals where like I didn't have a lot of time to figure it out in advance, and I didn't have an exact path of what, like how I was going to approach this. So it wasn't like I know exactly what I'm going to do. It was like, well, no matter how I do this, it works out. So I'm going to buy it and then figure it out later, because it doesn't matter what I do. Like I'll still make money on it. So that's cool. Yeah. And I bought this one at the peak of like the fear. So no one really wanted it because it was like, some people were like, oh my God, 15 lots. That's too big. I don't want to deal with 15 new construction houses. But like, you don't, just because you can develop a property into 15 different lots doesn't mean that you have to become a developer and develop 15 houses on it. Like that's just insane. Like you're going from A to Z. There's like a million other opportunities in between those two pieces. So here we are. Notable mention is my Alabama flip. This one I didn't put in here because I didn't really have room, but it's probably worth mentioning. This is like my most normal deal, I feel like. So I don't know. I don't think it's like as exciting, but I bought this house in basically the nicest town in the nicest neighborhood in the nicest town in pretty much all of Alabama. It's basically like Kirkland, but like nicer. I don't know. And I bought it for $450. So this is a project that I bought because it was a good deal, and I just haven't had the time or energy or like investment emotionally to like really manage it very well. I keep forgetting I have it, to be honest, but now it's like almost done. So I'm like, okay, cool, I can sell it soon. Anyway, bought it for $450. I'm putting in about probably 160, 170, including like loan fees and everything. And then it still looks like I'll be able to sell it for like 900, maybe 850. I mean, it's a pretty good deal. I mean, really for just a normal flip. So, okay, that's that. Wait, any questions on that so far? No, okay. I feel like I'm just rambling to myself up here, like no one telling me anything. So weird. Okay, moving on. Growth. Wait, can you see the growth? Oh God, sorry, technology, guys, it's tough. Oh, okay, good, you can see it. No, I'm back. Okay, so growth is one of those things where it's not linear, like even remotely. You cannot judge your growth by what happened yesterday or a week ago or 2 weeks ago. It is like a macro picture over years. I have personally found that every time I'm in that place of like, oh my God, everything sucks, I hate this is terrible, why am I in this business, the next step is massive growth. So I've been in that position enough times. You can see by my little picture that I drew here for you guys is like there's like this little stormy period and everything's terrible and I'm like, what am I doing? I question everything. I feel like I'm a failure. And then I'm like, I go down a little bit, like things get really tough, they get really hard, and then all of a sudden they just take off. And once you get through that, because a lot of people will quit in that period of like everything sucks, they throw in the towel, they leave, right? Well, you're losing that opportunity because just around the next corner is the time when you're going to be like shooting forward and learning a bunch and growing a bunch and whatever. So you have to just kind of ride out those little terrible periods to get your head above water, and you're going to have a great time after that. But there's also like a mindset component, and some of that I think is experience, and some of that is just like choosing to believe that everything will be fine. It is almost always fine. Everything's almost always fine. You know, if you're alive, it's fine. So that's kind of my philosophy on that. Okay, let's see. Next slide. So again, it was more fun to present this in person because I got to see everyone's faces and like yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Online presentations are weird, but okay. So yeah, really feel free to interject if you want to like pop in on your microphone and say something and be like, you have no idea what you're talking about, loser. Like, feel free, it's fine. Okay, so fear and anxiety, and then I also feel like that coincides a lot with depression and stress. They're both like, fear and anxiety is like an up emotion. It's like, you know, you feel that your heart rate's going crazy, right? And depression and like high intense stress is like, oh my God, I'm just so overwhelmed, I can't handle this anymore. Everything slows down, not in a fun way. So I always try to see is like fear is unproductive, but it is data. You can have fear, observe it, acknowledge it, dissect it, understand it, and use that as like information to move forward or do whatever you need to do without just like sitting in that and just like panicking, like having the analysis paralysis. So I don't know if you guys have read Traction, which is a really great book, but in that book, they talk about IDS, identify, discuss, solve. And that's technically used in the context of like doing that with your team. However, you can also IDS yourself. So that's what I do, like identify the fear, discuss it with yourself. It's really helpful to write things out or to actually physically speak those things and not just let it like circle in your head forever, because that gets you down that toilet bowl of just like rumination. And then you can solve, you can figure out a game plan, but you really can't do that until you've like taken a step back from the fear and the feelings of terror and like, you know, work through that. You always will find reasons to justify your feelings and fear. Literally anything. You could find the best deal on the damn planet. You could have 100 people tell you it's the best deal on the damn planet. but your brain is just hardwired to find a reason. It's going to find a reason why you're afraid and use that as like information, or not information, but yeah, information. It's going to use that as a reason why you shouldn't move forward. So just know that like your brain's working against you in certain scenarios. The fear response is there to protect you, but it also like we're not being chased by saber-toothed tigers, and our brains haven't developed past that really enough to like where we are as humans now. So try to take a step back, like put your fear on a plate, observe it, look at it, smell it, poke it, taste it, but don't live in it, if that makes sense. It also helps to just come back to the numbers every time you have fear. Like you can work through things and just be like, okay, but the numbers say this. Okay, but the numbers say this. And just be really confident in that, especially if you're not super confident in your numbers, and then talk to people who are, and run things past people. Like there's a ton of people in this group who are happy to run through numbers with you. And that's what I try to go back to whenever I'm like, oh my gosh, should I do this? Should I do this? Okay, what do the numbers say? What do the numbers say? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it. It's also very helpful again to speak, like physically say or like talk out loud, even if it's just to yourself, what your fear is or whatever you're feeling. Because the more you go through, and I do this all the time, like all the time, the more you like sit in that feeling and let it circle around your head, the more you're reinforcing that, and you're training your brain to sit in that fear space. So talking about it physically, even if you don't have a person to talk about it to, just kind of helps you get out of that place. On the flip side, wait, does anyone have any questions about that right now? Or are we not doing questions till the end? Well, whatever, just, I don't care. Diana is the ruler of this, I guess.
We're just getting really good feedback. People are loving your presentation and feel like you're being super raw and real. So that's awesome.
Oh, good. I try to keep it 100% genuine at all times because I don't have time for, nonsense. Okay, cool. All right, depression and stress. So I have a lot of stressful things in my life, like that is objective. And I've gotten really good at dealing with those things. And I used to be someone who every time I'd have like a bad day where I just needed to lay in bed all day, I'd beat myself up about that. I'd be like, oh, this is terrible. I'm so unproductive. What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. Now I know that when I have those days, like I just have to have them. I have to just lie in bed and just like be kind of sad. And I try to always make myself do things that are like small wins. So like make yourself take a walk, or like eat, or like something to snap you out of it a little bit. Take a shower, whatever it is, like play with your dog, play with your kid, just something to kind of get you out of it. But try not to focus on the like macro picture when you're having bad days, because you have to take care of your body and your brain, and sometimes we just need those days to kind of like get back and get our brain back. We just need to rest. So yeah, no one is balling all the time. I just threw that in there, but it's true. It's just you can't always be going. So let yourself have those days. Okay, trying to switch the slides again here. Okay, so mindset coaching is something that is very much worth mentioning. I've had enormous success with it, and I think like it can be definitely expensive, especially for a good mindset coach, but it's absolutely phenomenal. So it's really helped me in like every aspect of my life. And I've been working with Jason Drees coaching, and yeah, I think it's great for literally every aspect. But it's all like how much you want to believe in yourself and invest in yourself. Because I always tell people, I truly believe that the only thing I can't do is fly. Like anything else I would decide I want to do, I can accomplish. And even flying, I feel like it depends how you look at it. I'm probably not going to be a bird, but so yeah. So that's like one of those things you have to just like decide you don't want to be in that place anymore. Like you have to decide you're ready to go forward, and it's uncomfortable as hell. Like I'm not going to beat around the bush there. Like it can be pretty uncomfortable and make you think about a lot of things you don't want to think about and feel a lot of ways you don't want to feel. But if you want to, you can do it 100%. Okay. Obstacles and excuses is another fun one. I've heard a lot of them. I've had a lot of them. I've said a lot of them, but they're all just excuses, like literally. One of the good ones, partners not supportive of real estate. I get that, you know, I'm not really a good one to talk to about that because I'm just divorced and that was the right call for me. But like there's definitely ways around that and compromises, and you might have to, you know, kind of again IDS their fear is probably why they're not supportive of it. It's they're afraid and they don't understand it. So how can you meet them where they're at and like be on the same page there? I don't have any money is a good one. You can find a really good deal that doesn't need money, or a partner who has money. Again, this Lake Taps deal I just bought, like literally got paid to buy it. So it's possible. And if you're not in a position where you know a lot about real estate, then learn everything you can. Become the person who knows everything. Become obsessed with it. Because then people are going to want to invest with you if you can prove that, you know, put your money where your mouth is, or your work where your mouth is, I guess, your actions, etc. Okay. Not knowing how to analyze deals, another good excuse. That is something that's very, very important. But there's so many resources online that, especially like online calculators, networking groups, this group, random people who like you can post deals in like forums and they'll just give you feedback, like Bigger Pockets forums or the Addicted to ROI forums. There's a lot of options. YouTube has a lot of good info, blogs. I mean, there's so much. Some personal obstacles I've had that like could be used as an excuse that I haven't let become an excuse. Like, no one taught me how to invest in real estate. My first deal was terrible. I had poverty in my early adulthood, 3 jobs in college. I didn't have any time, domestic violence history. I was a young mom, unsupportive marriage, mass financial issues, contractor, city court fighting for my house. I opened a wedding venue during the pandemic, divorce at a young age. I bought a business from a guy who's committing a bunch of fraud. Generally being a young woman in real estate and construction, I started at 19. All of those are things that like I could use as an excuse to not do what I've done, but I don't let myself. And I have before, but I don't let myself do that anymore. Reverse goal setting. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones because it's a little weird, but and I'll show you on the next slide, how I set my goals and achieve them. And it works really, really well if you want to do it. So this one, I want you guys to all close your eyes for a minute. Like, bear with me, just do it. Take a deep breath and picture your ideal life, like the perfect life. Don't think about any of the can'ts or why nots or anything like that. Just picture yourself, feel yourself in that perfect life. What's going to make you the happiest, most fulfilled? Where is that? Like, I want you to really feel it, to see it, to smell it, everything, the environment. I want you to hear, you know, the noises that you're going to see in that environment, everything. Just feel it in your heart. Capture everything about that. And when you're done, open your eyes and without stressing or letting any doubt creep in, fully believe that you will have that 100%. Every single freaking atom of you should be believing that you can have that. Start thinking about what's required to make that happen. Is it a dollar amount? Is it figuring out how to educate your kids? Don't make any excuses. Don't get lost in the details. All these things can be solved. But what is stopping you from being there in your perfect life? And then we can work backwards from there. Okay, so this is my goal board. This is not exactly how mine was set up because I did it on a whiteboard. And so I was trying to recreate based on what I remember, but it's not entirely accurate at all. So I do this literally on a whiteboard because I like having like a living document. I feel like that's something about writing is more fun for me. So on one thing I should also mention is pretty much everything I do is extremely active. Investing, like I have not focused on passive income at all. And that's changed a lot. I think a little over a year ago, my goal was passive income. That was my goal. And things have changed drastically because I realized that's not like what I love to do. It's not what gets me excited and fired up, which I'll talk about more on the next slide. So this is, and actually, Diana has a copy of this and like a template for this as well that I'm sure she will send you guys at the end if you want it. But the way I do this is I have my passive income on one side, which again, I've kind of ignored, my active income on the other side, and I track it with a whiteboard marker, literally just filling up the thing. I have my big picture goal, and this could be as long out of a timeline as you want. I like 3 years personally, but you could do 5 or 10 or whatever. I just want to make it like 20. Don't make it so far out that it's just doesn't feel like it's ever going to happen, because your brain can only really feel so far in advance, and 3 years is close enough that it's still tangible, but and a little scary. Like it should be a little bit scary. It should be like, oh my God, how am I going to do that in 3 years? But not completely unrealistic. So if it doesn't scare you at least a little bit, it's not a intense enough goal. So then I break that down. So like here, 500 plus acre dude ranch and a vacation home. That's like, I love that. And I could expand on that a lot because I've written out a lot of stuff on what that is. And maybe you even want to take like a piece of paper and write out like everything you envisioned in the last slide, like write that down and have that, just so you can reference that later every time things get tough, what you're working for. So I break it down. So I have like my 1 year goal, and I have, these are pretty tangible. Like this is this and this, plus like a personal or lifestyle goal. If I want to be able to travel 2+ weeks in the next 1 year, just for fun. 6 months. So then you want to break this down. And I did not do 50%. Like the obvious answer is do 50% of this. But in my opinion, when it's like a snowball effect. So I like 30%, roughly 35 and 30% of my 1 year goals. And then I did like a micro goal here, not micro goal, but medium goal of like taking a vacation. That would get me towards my 2 weeks. Refinancing my house so that I could have some cash to free up to invest in these things or these things. So then my 3-month goal, again, you're going to break it down, do less than half of what your 6 months are. $1,200 per month. That's starting to feel pretty tangible. $50,000 in active income. Take a weekend trip. Book my next vacation. Choose a lender and start the process. All these things are really simple. Like some of these are like literally to-do items, like book a vacation, choose a lender. Like that, you can see how all these things tie into this and even this. But it's really and I'm using my little pointer thing. I don't know if you can actually see the pointer thing at all, but anyway, I'm pointing at the 3-month goals and how they're all tying into the 1 year goals. Then again, you're going to break down even further. So now I'm like, I don't even have this goal here of the passive income. I want to be pending on properties. That's even more tangible. Pending on a flip, doing a weekend trip, like booking this weekend trip that I'm going to take in 3 months, shortlisting some destinations. Like you're starting to get more and more granular with it. And then your 1 week is basically a to-do list. And this is something that should change. So all of these should change. Every month you should review this and see if this is going to change to get you towards this 3-year goal, which of course can also change. 1 week goals. This is a to-do. Decide on my investing criteria. What am I looking for? Shortlisting 3 cities to invest in, running numbers on 25 flips, reaching out to wholesalers and agents, browsing the internet for vacation ideas. All these things are really, really tangible. You might even want to, I would assign like a numerical value, reach out to 5 wholesalers and 5 agents. I don't know. But you're looking at these things that are just like going to get you towards this goal. And then when you accomplish all of these, which are absolutely completely doable in a 1 week span, like even if you have 2 full-time jobs, you can still do this stuff. Then you're going to redo your 1 week goals and make sure that they're progressing toward the 1 month. If you need to redo your 1 month goals, which I would also put dates here. So like, this by this date, by this date, by this date, by this date. And then if you need to change that, you can always change that. But the goal with this is it should scare you a little bit. If it doesn't scare you at least a little bit, it's not enough. It's not going to motivate you. But it also shouldn't terrify you or make you feel totally overwhelmed. And that's why I really like the flow of this, because you can just kind of, you can see how it goes from big to small, and it feels so much more doable. Like, any of you could do these 1 week things. Not saying like any of your goals are my goals, but any of you could do those in a day, basically. So it's really, really granular at the bottom. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So here's another thing that is on this topic, but like, what is your real estate investing strategy? Because there are a million options in real estate, like a million. And again, my strategy, probably not going to be your strategy because it's kind of weird. It's 100% active. Like I do not do passive investing really. I mean, well, I have the one property, but but I'm doing stuff I love doing that gets me really excited. And it's taken me some time to figure out that what my path is not what everyone else's path is. And that's fine. Like, I don't need to do it. Even if the simple path is to buy, X rentals a month at whatever cash flow, and then you have $10,000 a month, super simple. Anyone can do that. Most anyone can do that. But that's not what gets me excited at all and doesn't motivate me. And I'm not as motivated by money. I'm more motivated by figuring out the puzzle and solving it. So you want to make a list of all the tasks you like to do, anything that feels light or fun to you, like things that you wouldn't mind getting out of bed for, every sort of task. Like for me, I really love spreadsheets. I love solving puzzles. I like analyzing. I like learning. I like working by myself. I like learning about new ideas, creating new things. I'm not really a huge group person, whatever, all these things. I hate being on the phone. So am I going to be a good wholesaler? Like, absolutely not. I'd be a terrible wholesaler. I'm not very good at systematizing things. I don't want to have a buy box and systematize my purchases. All those things means like I'd be really bad at wholesaling. I'd be really bad at like buy and hold rentals right now. Not what I want to be doing. And that's fine. That's just how I am, and I'm comfortable with that now. So you want to kind of try to paint the picture here of like what kind of work you like doing, and like what doesn't feel like work to you, because if it feels like work to you, you're not going to do it probably, because you're not getting directly paid for it. No one's telling you to. Again, you want to think about your big picture goals and kind of try to figure out, okay, so is this something that like you want to retire to Thailand and you need $2,000 a month to live really comfortably? Because that's a very different goal than I want to own $20 million in vacation homes, right? And kind of try to figure out, like, do you need a lot of cash to invest in something one time, or do you need just cash flow consistently monthly? How does that work into your big picture goals? Try to keep it really specific as well to your specific long-term goals and what you want to do. Keep in mind, if you try to do everything at once, you'll just fail at all of it. So, it's really important to kind of hone in on what you like doing and like find your strengths and work with your strengths. I realized, like, I beat myself up so much about how I've always been someone who, like, I love to do 75% of a project and then I fail at it and stop thinking about it. Like my home builders course. Oh my gosh, I almost done building my first time home builders course, and then I forgot about it and I don't want to touch it again. And that's because I am not someone who's good at implementing things. Like, I'm not someone who's good at details, not good at implementing, I'm not good at finishing. And so I'm working with my strengths and hiring someone to help me do the rest of it, because I just know that once I lose that motivation, I'm not going to get it done. And that's okay for where I'm at right now, because I have the ability to have someone else fill in the gaps for me. But yeah, previously I just used to fight myself all the time and beat myself up about it, and that was not productive at all. Stay away from the hype. So there's a lot of fantastic information on the internet about real estate, which I love, but there's also a lot of like, hey, look at this new Lambo I bought and this new stupid Rolex I bought and blah, blah, blah. And I make this much money and I'm 20 years old. And like, a lot of that stuff is just like utter nonsense, truly. Like, I feel like if you look at their tax returns, they're probably not that exciting. So just keep in mind that, like, everyone is different. Everyone's strategy is different. And there's a lot of really good information, but you need to put everything you learn on the internet, especially when it's hyped up or they're trying to sell you something, through a little filter and take the grains of sand that are actually worthwhile and not the ones that make you feel like shit or like that you're not doing enough. Another good thing is accountability buddies. So I have accountability groups, a couple of them actually, and it's really helpful, especially if you're all on the same page, or like if you want to do a vision board together or like a goal board together, and then all like work towards that, check in with each other once a week, meet once a month, whatever works for you guys. But having that accountability and like people who you can count on to like tell you if you're on the right track or not, it's extremely valuable, because then you don't feel like you're all alone, and it's kind of a scary world to be all alone. I think this is our final slide here. Yeah, recap. So to find your strategy, hopefully your key takeaways are like, you need to know what you want and why. Insanely important. And again, don't put any other people's expectations on what you want. Like, everyone can have a completely different what they're looking for. I mean, maybe Maybe you have no intention of ever quitting your W-2 job, but you just want some like FU money or something else entirely, or you want to build wealth for your kids. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's what you want. That's the important thing. Also might not fit in a box or follow someone else's strategy, but it might. Both are fine. Don't listen to hype. Listen to you. You should really start trying to hone into like your internal dialogue, and like that is more important than everyone else's dialogue. So I can't should not be in your vocabulary. Like that is not a word I believe exists or shouldn't exist. It just shouldn't. If every time you find yourself trying to say or feel like I can't do that, try to reframe that. Like, why can't you? But also, how can you say that without using that dialogue? And why are you using that dialogue? Just try to catch yourself. Like every time you say or think I can't, like why? Try to catch it. You're gonna be like, oh shit, I say that a lot. Take care of yourself. Your brain and your body are both super important. And finally, accountability buddies. Again, highly recommend that. And I'm sure if you want to post on Addicted to ROI Group, actually no, you guys have like a whole thing about like monthly. Yeah, okay, those things are great, and a lot of people don't take full advantage of having like set up accountability buddies in Addicted to ROI Group, but you really should, and make sure you're going to show up and be there and like be committed to it and be all in. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that. So with that, I believe I am done slide showing you and ready for questions.
That was so awesome, Brianna. Thank you so much for that presentation. And it seems like the messages that you had really resonated with people. Mary really loved the idea of having your goals on a whiteboard. So that was just great points that you pointed out. If anyone has any questions for Brianna, feel free to use the reactions to raise your hand, and we can bring you on to ask any questions, or if you have any comments. Amy just commented in the chat. I can't usually means I don't know what other choices might be available. So that's a great point. You just have to go out there and learn or network with other people, talk to people who can try to help you work through those fears that you have, which is a great reason to post in the forum and connect with others. Hey, Tina. So it looks like we've got Tina here tonight. How's it going?
Hi, good. Brianna, that was so great. First off, thank you so much for doing that. I feel like I'm an awkward speaker too, so I can wait, but you were great. So
thank you.
You point that out. Wanted to ask you more about Syncadia and the whole new build process. I know you probably can't get into the nitty gritty in the time that we have, but just curious how that whole new build experience like went for you. Like, how did you find your contractors? Like, maybe what were your top 3 like lessons learned perhaps? I'm going through like a process of my first new build too. So just curious what your experience was like, and how did you land on Syncadia, besides the fact that it's beautiful out there? But
yeah, so the Syncadia, I'll answer that first because it's a little easier. But I just kept seeing like on Zillow the prices of the homes in Syncadia like just going crazy, and I'm like, it doesn't cost that much to build a house, oh my god. So I just decided I'd go out there, and I pretended that I was looking to buy for myself, but then I like wanted to pick the agent's brain a little bit, and like, so what if I wanted to build a house, like are there any restrictions out here for who can be a home builder, blah blah blah, and just kind of like vibed that out, and it was all fine. So then I found the 2 lots, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. Sorry, probably shouldn't swear, but anyway. So that's kind of how I found that and started doing that, because yeah, the cost of house sales in that market were significantly more than the cost to build. I was going to GC the whole project myself, and I'm glad I didn't, but I also the builder has been a long story, but they were really good up until their project manager quit, and they never rehired a project manager. So that was in February, and at that point I pretty much had to take over the management, and so that's been a process, and nothing happened for the houses for a long time, and it was kind of a mess. But ultimately, when looking for a builder, like really, really clear communication and expectations is really important. One thing that they wrote in their contract, which was kind of hilarious at the end of it all, is that they would have the house done in 14 months or less, from digging in the ground to fully finished. And they have now run up into that 14 months timeline on one of my houses. So that's a bit of a issue. So yeah, so that is something that's been, and we can talk more about this too offline if you'd like to. I'm happy, but it's been worth it in terms of like the profit on it has been great. But the profit on every single luxury spec house ever is not necessarily like going to be the same deal, right? You might have the same issues and have a less profit margin. Part of it is because it is Suncadia. It has done so well, and because I got my lots for so cheap, because those lots are now like, I don't know, $400,000 or $500,000 for a stupid lot. So no, I'm not going to do it again. Like a lot of people ask me if I'm going to do it again. I'm like, no, the circumstances worked at the time so well that it worked out. But if I were to try to repeat that, I don't think it would work very well and probably not be worth it. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. I definitely will take you up on your offer, probably reaching out and talking offline though.
Sure.
Yeah, but I won't bother you too much, but I would love to pick your brain more.
Yeah.
Great questions, Tina. Yeah, you guys are working on a new build by the beach, right?
Yeah, in
awesome.
Seabrook, if anyone is familiar with that.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I looked at building Seabrook actually.
Yeah, see, there you go. Reaffirming my decision.
Just bring me down to your house for a couple nights and I'll tell you all the dirty secrets.
Your minds think alike. Briana, are you not planning on moving into the second home anymore? Because I thought originally you were going to move into
I was going to. So I built that for me and my ex, and then we got divorced. So I decided to sell it. I was going to keep it as an Airbnb, but the cost of, because I'm not financeable. So the cost of like keeping it with a basically DSCR loan and worrying about whether or not the Airbnb was going to cover it, is just the interest rate was super high and it just makes more sense to sell it. So yeah.
That makes sense. Great questions, Tina. So Mary also has her hand raised. Hey, Mary, how's it going?
It's going good. It's pronounced Maudie.
Oh, Mari, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And I echo what Tina said. Briana, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like I have a statement and a fear, and maybe there's a question wrapped into it, but so joined, Inner Circle forever ago, and then haven't done a thing. So I am pre-approved with Cody, and I am now ready to do something. Just my goal is buy and hold, just buy and hold, because I don't really have a ton of knowledge. And I just reached out to Cody for like updated numbers and the interest rate. I was like, oh no, I have a call with him tomorrow, but I'm also the plan is to use the home equity line of credit from this place for a down payment. And the interest rates are now I'm getting hot. I'm hot and awkward. I have to take this off.
No worries.
The interest rates are freaking me out. So I don't know if there's a question. I'm like, is this my personal excuse of I can't now?
I mean, yes, but also it's a valid one, right? I mean, most excuses are valid in some capacity. So my response to that is find a deal that's so good that it doesn't matter and refinance when eventually the rates come back down. Like, technically speaking, the rates are still quite low for like how they have been historically over the last 100 years or whatever. So when you think, and realistically, like, they're probably not, I mean, I don't know, I'm not an economist, but they're probably not going to be 20%, again, because that hasn't happened in a long time. And don't think that would go very well for the American economy. So I don't anticipate rates being 40% or 20% or whatever they used to be. But nevertheless, technically 6% is still pretty low, like relatively speaking. So if you find a deal that is good enough to account for that, and maybe you even want to try to like wrap some seller financing into it at a lower rate, that's an option a lot of people have been going to. It's an option, right? So you just make sure your numbers work, like regardless of where the rate is at, and then know you can probably refinance down the line, but don't like rely on that as your option, right? So it should still cash flow. Does that help at all?
Yep, find the right deal and it doesn't matter. Thank you.
I also love your wallpaper as a side note.
Thank you.
And then along the lines of that, Dina in the chat mentioned that Brianna had touched on, probably won't get up to 20% anymore, but also probably won't ever get to 2 to 3% ever again either. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then Tina also said if you're going to buy and hold and assume you'll want to get tenants, looking at the big picture, the long-term benefit to buy now outweighs waiting to buy.
Yeah.
Great questions, Mary.
Yeah, just adapt. Like because there's always going to be obstacles, like no matter what, right? And if you're stuck in one way of doing things, like I know I'm speaking globally too, not just to you, because I know that you're newer and everything. But everything can always change, right? And the more comfortable you are with that possibility, the easier you'll find it all to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
very true, Dina.
Real estate downturns are the best times to plant seeds of enormous wealth. Awesome. And then next we have Deborah with her hand raised. Hey, Deborah. Happy Wednesday.
Hi. Hey, Briana, thank you so much. Really admire your story. Also, Madi, unlike you, joined forever ago and still waiting to actually start doing the investing. I have partnered with some people on a few projects, but my question is, Briana, can you explain, when you talked about getting a second and third lien, I'm kind of unfamiliar with the lien process. I have a HELOC on my home that I can use, to help fund a rehab or just cover some of my, use that instead of maybe hard money. But I'm not sure if you're using your lien, the second and third lien on your own home. Is that what you're doing, or can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, if you can get a HELOC, that's usually the better option. You can't really typically get a HELOC on non-primary residences. I'm also not financeable, so I never use bank debt because I've never been able to. I think I'll be able to use bank debt next year after I file my taxes this year, but I've always been self-employed. So anyway, so the second, third lien, those are only on investment properties for what I have done, speaking to my own experience. And thirds are pretty rare. They're pretty hard to do, pretty expensive. Only a couple lenders will do them. Flynn Family Lending is one of them. And they're really like dependent on the deal, but they will not touch a primary residence. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so if I've got a HELOC, I should definitely be using that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
If I want to get money out of an investment property, possibly use a lien then.
Yeah, and it's going to depend too on like if you have a really good rate for your primary or for your first lien on an investment property and you have a lot of equity, that probably makes more sense to get a small second line of credit or something like that on the property. But if your rate's not very good, it might make sense to refinance it and then wrap that all into one. So it just kind of depends on what the best solution is for that particular deal.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's awesome that you mentioned Flynn Family Lending. A few weeks ago, we had Ashley Gallacher on for a call about how she was able to creatively finance her short-term rentals. And she also utilized Flynn Family to get a lien on her first property.
Nice.
That's
they have some pretty good unique products and stuff. So they're not the cheapest hard money lender out there for sure, but they are pretty creative and they're very like deal dependent.
Awesome. Great question, Deborah. And then we also have Etch. Hey, Etch, how's it going?
Hi. Sorry. Let's see if I can get my face on here. Oh yeah. Hi. Yeah. So Briana, I had been searching in the Seattle area and there's no way I can get sort of the mortgage and rent ratio. Like at 20%, there's no way the rent even came close to covering that. So, in expensive markets, even if I found the cheapest homes, like say 650, whatever, I found that I'd have to put down like 50% or 60%, right?
Yeah.
So I can't cover my debt. So I went to Columbus, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And because, I heard, okay, you can still get a house for 150, 200 there. And right. I'm going, okay, so my shopping, do I just limit it by, the price where with 20% down, the rent will cover it. So that means I have to scour all of the United States for homes that are under $200,000. I mean, is that how it works? I'm trying to figure this. I'm a newbie. I'm just trying to figure.
Okay. Yeah. So, kind of, but it's simpler than that.
Okay.
I know AROI has a which market should I invest in calculator thingy. Is that right? Yeah. So go to their website and find that's really helpful. That's a good place to start, because it can be extremely overwhelming to be like, oh, well, there's like a million markets I could invest in now because I can't invest in Seattle. So where do I start? So I would start somewhere like that. It's gonna ask you some questions about your Dina, maybe can drop the link in the chat.
Yeah. So I guess my thing was, even if I find it, like no matter what city I go to, I can only buy homes that are like $200,000 or less. I mean, because you were talking about you bought a place that was like 350 to you bought places that were in the Northwest. They're going to cost a lot more.
Yeah.
And you had bought some pretty expensive places, and you said you like put down 15% or something. How did you cover how did you cover the debt on that?
Yes. So the Clean and Sober house I have, for example, that was a commercial loan, and I bought that one for $375 up in Everett in 2017. So that one, I actually did some partial seller financing on that for part of the down payment. Okay. But the strategy for that is not a single family, buy and hold one tenant. We have 9 tenants in there. That's a rooming house. And I don't really I have a manager living there. So that's the most passive deal I have by a landslide, but it cash flows really, really well. I'm not going to say that's like the solution, because it's certainly more active than like one tenant having a property manager. But sometimes it's like, and this is going to become less relevant as the market cools down and good deals are easier to find. But sometimes it's like looking at things in different ways. Like, how can I'm fairly confident I could make most deals work if I looked at it the right way. But my buy criteria is really, really specific, I guess, at this point. So sometimes it's just about being creative.
So when you say you're active versus passive, I think 95% of everything I've looked at has been, when you go online and you search things, it's passive. So not much has been covered as far as like active investment. So that kind of was not, familiar to me. And also, if there are other options, you have to go commercial.
There are a lot of options.
Okay.
There are so many options. I don't even know about all the options.
Wow.
But there are I learned a bunch of more options on this event I went to on Saturday that I'd never even heard of before. So there's constantly more things you can learn and do. It just depends on how much you want to. Like, if you have a W-2 job and you don't plan on quitting that anytime soon, you probably don't need to know as much as I do. And if you want to be full-time in real estate like me, then you probably want to know as much as I do, or at least close to it, right? So so for your strategy where you're at right now, I would start with figuring out some markets that you're interested in and start analyzing deals, because it might not just be like the dollar amount of 200,000. It might be a little more nuanced than that. There's a little bit more art that goes into it than just like simply a $200,000 house. Like, that could mean a lot of different things. What's your tenant pool going to look like? Much rehab does a house need, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So for you,
So I analyzed all of that.
Okay.
And but I guess the question is then, where do you learn more about the other options? Where have you found, like, I know you went to something for the weekend, but what's a good place? Is there a good place for that?
I'm trying to think where I've learned. I feel like I've learned a lot on the internet, like just kind of various Google rabbit holes, but I've also learned a lot by talking to people who are doing weird stuff. The Clean and Sober house was really random. That kind of just fell into my lap. The wedding venue was something I just decided I wanted to do, and I don't really know why, but
like, I've heard of like senior adult family homes or
the thing with adult family homes is that typically you have to have a lot more like licensing on that. Like, you have to have an operator who's like a nurse, I think. So it's a little bit, but like, you can find operators. So I actually know a guy who buys a lot of those, and he is a nurse though. So I mean, that could be something that, like, I don't know how he's handling that. I haven't talked to him about it very much. Now I kind of want to. But I don't know if that answered any of your questions.
No, that's
much
great
information on the internet.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Great question. And as Dina mentioned, we did have a call a few weeks ago with Jennifer where she went over different ways that you can creatively finance or structure a deal so that it might make more sense for you. So the recording for that is online on the dashboard and the platform. And for our final question of the night, Susan had a question, but I saw Dana also just raise her hand, but we'll get to Susan's question first. Of the gazillion deals that cross your desk, how do you decide what deals you will go after? When do you see a home run, or when timing works out? When you finished another project? She asked this because she has a lot of shiny object syndrome and feels like she's waiting for the perfect possible deal.
I very much understand that feeling. It's not something that I really feel like I have a clear answer for, because it's taken me several years to kind of work out exactly what I'm looking for. And yes, now when I find a home run, I'm going to buy it. But I've also passed up on home runs before because I was too scared or didn't know exactly what I was looking for. So now I know, okay, I've done enough deal analyzing. I have enough experience where like I see a home run, I'm going to buy it. Like this Lake Taps deal. One worry that came up for me was like, oh, but everyone else has seen it. They haven't bought it. Okay. Yeah, sure. But then I did buy it and turns out it's great. So yeah, timing plays into it a little bit. I was not looking for a deal when I bought this one because I have enough on my plate and didn't want to add anything, which is part of the reason I'm kind of not pushing to get it done quickly. But it was too good to pass up. So I bought it. So there's definitely a bit of like an art to it in terms of just like knowing what you're looking for. And for me, it needs to be like a phenomenal knockout of the park deal. Like I will not just take like a normal profit margin that most people would accept, especially with something risky like flipping or developing. Like it really has to be killer for me to be interested, which that probably doesn't help you at all. But yeah, it's kind of figuring it out slowly but surely. Trial and error.
Yeah, you really need to have those margins that if interest rates keep going up or something.
Yeah, I try to run my scenarios where like, okay, if the market crashes 30+%, like how are we going to look? So, and everything I buy like fits that, works. So, yeah.
Amy had a follow-up question. Do you have a way to pass on home run deals? Do we have a way to pass on home run deals or own analysis to each other if we decide to pass ourselves? Yeah, Amy, if anyone sees any deals that you think are great, definitely feel free to post them in the forum. If you feel like the numbers make sense, but maybe just not make sense for you at the time, maybe you have a lot going on. Yeah, the forum is a great place to be able to share different things that you're experiencing or seeing on the market. Awesome. And then Dana.
I just want to say, so Bree and I mastermind together and she's awesome. So I just want to say that. But I also want to say, I noticed there's a lot of women on this call. Don't be afraid to do commercial, because Bree did commercial her first deal, and I mainly do commercial. Don't be afraid to go into the commercial realm above 4 units. So that's all I want to say.
And Dana's a badass, so she does a lot of awesome commercial deals. So yeah, absolutely, that's very true. It's not something that's often discussed, especially like in circles with a lot of female investors, but yeah, don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, Jennifer's always pushing for us to look into those commercial deals. Commercial lending can be so much easier to secure than conventional residential financing.
Yeah,
so
like I'm still not financeable conventionally, and like you could look at my resume, right, my net worth, and it's like, well, I still can't buy a house. So it's, yeah, but I have no problem getting a deal that's based on, or a financing that's based on the deal. So
yeah, great points. Briana, thank you so much for an awesome presentation. It was so inspiring and just a really nice way to get us to reframe our mindset and think more creatively, think outside the box. And I also really loved that you put emphasis that sometimes the days do suck and that's okay. You just have to celebrate the small wins. And that's something I'm going to remember in this last quarter of the year.
Yeah. Definitely meet yourself where you're at, and that can change day by day, second by second. You just gotta accept where you're at in the moment and, be cool with it.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you so much for your time. The recording will be up soon. I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Tomorrow we do have a market call about Chattanooga with Gregory, who is one of our agent partners and an Inner Circle member. So hope to see you all there. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.